When it comes to social media, one of the graphs that I'm actually using, really interesting one, to build my strategy and everything that goes with, and just to understand what really going on and where we're going, specifically to what we call social media. And you know what? Before put any comments or whatever it is, I just wanna to show you what it's all about. So as usually is the case, I put myself aside, and here we go. So if you're listening to this via audio, obviously I will try to depict it in the best way possible. But if you look at it on a screen, you will see basically a decline of social media, and that graph, actually the data was extracted over the years, and I put it on this graph. It shows the major social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and the kind of average weekly post. It's the overall average per week that users are posting on those platforms. And why it is important? It is important because that what determines the interaction and engagements of users on a specific platform. If nobody is posting, it basically becomes kind of a ghost town. You can sustain a platform, especially a platform where people need to be engaged, people need to view the other posts and actually sometimes post their own, whatever it's comments or just the post themselves, just posting content. And what you see here is that when it comes to Facebook, and it's so interesting. I mean, because you see basically the trends themselves. So when it comes to Facebook, between 2018 and today, 2025, well, Facebook lost, oh my gosh, from 9 to 4. It's beyond 50% of average weekly post. So basically, more than 50% of engagement, or what's we call interaction density per user. So 50% lost, or beyond 50% lost over between 2018 and 2025. It's basically it's becoming basically a ghost town. Facebook, Facebook is disappearing as a platform by itself. But if you look, even Instagram, which is supposed to be quite stable, at least what everybody is saying, like Instagram is stable, there's a lot of engagement, and now we see a drop of from 8 to 6, beyond 20% drop, which is significant. Even a 10% drop for those platforms are a lot. Now it goes beyond, from 8 to 6 is beyond basically 20%. Even things like YouTube, which is not so much a social media anymore, it's more like a mass media, it's more like a broadcasting platform. From 2018 to 2025, yeah, we also see a drop of about 20%. It was stable, and then we see a drop in terms of posting. Even something like LinkedIn, it was stable. Even grow. Even you see a growth from 2018 to 2020, and then a drop of again like 50% by 2025. So all of that shows you that things evolving, and you see the idea here is that all those social media platforms, they were built on something. They were built on what's called social networks. And social networks, they didn't invent social networks. Social networks existed before social media, before the web. It's just social networks are just a group of people that get together. And why people get together, why even those social networks exist? Well, I mean, people wants to, obviously we're social creatures, but people in those social networks, even on the web, those people relate each to one to each other. Basically, they feel meaningful. Those are the key points that are pretty much important if you want to build any social networks or rely on any social networks. So all of this creates trust, where kind of marketers can sneak out and can exploit those social networks to sell products or services. Because within social networks, where people feel meaningful, where they trust each other, where they because they can relate to each other, you have this high degree of trust. And through that degree of trust, obviously, you could sell products or services. Um, so if we just look at right now the brands or the companies, how much they post per week, and that those are kind of interesting numbers that we see right now. Like LinkedIn, it's 5.1 posts per week. For Facebook, it's 14 posts per week. Instagram, 9 posts per week. TikTok, 3.7 posts per week. Now, I don't know if TikTok's right now is declining or is still stable. It's difficult to say, especially in these days with the political climate and everything that goes with. But you see, I mean, the problem is that all of those businesses at one point they kind of they kind of they become aware that social media is valuable, and we could basically exploit it to sell products and services. And when they came, all of those businesses, all of those polished budget, high budget productions, they basically flooded the social media. Now, when a budget production, like when a professional media production company, because all of those businesses, they hired professional production companies, or they decided to become one. When they do it professional, obviously when they flood with that highly polished, highly professional content, I mean, the average user will feel meaningless. I mean, how would you feel if all the content that you see is highly polished? Would you, post something of something that you're doing, and expect something to happen? No, obviously not. You feel meaningless, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, there's just you get bombarded with a lot of posts of a lot of content, highly professional content, and people they're using. And if I go back to that graph that I showed you, even YouTube, that's supposed to be, it's not anymore. I mean, YouTube, it's not anymore a social media platform by itself. It's a mass media platform that offer a chance for, I will say, media production businesses to have their place. In the same way that Netflix, put a bunch of movies and TV series on their platform. Well, I mean, YouTube is doing the same, but by allowing, probably independent creators that right now became almost all of them kind of businesses, to put their production on the platform. But saying that it's you will see that there's a social networks there. I don't see any social networks within YouTube, and I see that even LinkedIn, I mean, that's saying that there's a social networks there. I'm sorry. And I will get back to all of those platforms and how they're kind of used more and more right now, and what's the future of social media is becoming, or where it's all going, where the social networks are going. I will talk about a little bit later. But you see, I mean, social media becomes kind of mass media is because, I mean, mass media on the web, basically, where a lot of professional media producers just push their content, and social networks, they go somewhere else. And that's exactly what is happening right now. So where are those social networks are migrating? Because obviously the social networks will not disappear. People are social, so they kind of get together somewhere, and they didn't abandon the web by itself. So where are they going actually? Well, social networks are migrating to more like a private spaces, like whatever it's WhatsApp, direct messaging, closed chat rooms, closed groups, Discord, and other type of messaging apps. Even LinkedIn, very often people don't don't know, but LinkedIn these days is used more like a messaging app to get in contact with some specific individuals within the network than basically a social media, than a social media like where people are posting and sharing things. Like it's basically a messaging app right now, the way it's used by most people these days, basically, and just keep in contact with some individual that they think are valuable. So what's the key take away from all of this is that casual posting is declining. Why? Because they basically, I mean, you're not gonna, as an individual, I mean, what's the incentive for an individual to post a piece of content if you know that you have highly polished, multi-million dollar budget production are posting in the same on the same platform? I mean, you're not gonna be recognized. You're not gonna feel meaningful. You're just a small, meaningless user within giants. So that's where the incentives is kind of going away. And this casual posting is declining. I mean, people are not posting anymore. And the numbers that you see on that graph, that's a kind of a conservative numbers. I will guess that, in some regions, the decline is more like 80-90%. It's like nobody's using it anymore. Now the engagement is fragmenting. What do I mean by that? I mean, it's going into private closed networks. Like social networks didn't disappear. They just get, they're going more and more private, and that's exactly what's happening. And what will, even on those, mass media, let's not call it even social media platform, on those mass media platforms, what will be really valuable, whether it's within those small private, groups, or on those mass media platforms, is pretty much authenticity, which will become premium. What do I mean by that? As general posts, drop, like raw human content becomes rare and valuable. People, something that I see very, very often is that people are not looking for something perfect, highly polished, within a perfect studio or whatever it is. What they're looking for something raw, real, and something that will give them some, meaningful information, some valuable information, or something that will be deeply entertaining, and that's something that they could relate to. I mean, this is something that kind of people are always craving for. They wanted to relate to somebody or something, and they also wanted to feel meaningful, and they wanted to get something valuable out of all of this. I mean, it makes no sense to just, and I see a lot of companies, in that space, they just, within one video, I think they bombard the viewer with I don't know how much information, and when it gets to the meaning, to the realness of all of this, it's like it gets lost. And how a user is supposed to connect with this? obviously, and that's why, I mean, people are not longer, even interested in looking, and they're not interested into kind of um, into connecting with those, with those type of contents. I mean, if they wanted to watch a documentary, they will watch a documentary. But being bombarded by the highly polished, highly professional content is just nobody's interested in anymore. And they want realness. They want something real, something that they could relate to, obviously. And as a and that's where the authenticity comes from. And social media kind of no longer, the magic bullet that it was 10 years ago, where um, many of the companies, many of the businesses don't believe into marketing on social media. It wasn't really a thing. And then obviously, at some point they kind of realize that it is the thing, because there's a lot of trust within social networks and social media. And then they started to bombard this, and they started to flood those whole platforms. And obviously what's happened is that you see a decline. I mean, because the basis of social media platforms is social networks. It's not the highly polished professional um, production that you see on the television. I mean, that's not what it is. So the gold rush is over for social media. The feeds are saturated, algorithms are unpredictable, and users are more selective, and basically they are burned out. So what is next? What's next is coming. I mean, where we're going with all of this? As I said, it goes much more within private groups, within specific closed chats, within things like WhatsApp, within groups that kind of more where you have more intimacy, trust, each other, and it becomes more of an utility thing than other things around. So instead of mass marketing through viral posts, because there's so much, I mean, there's so much advices of how make a piece of content viral, and it's not anymore about virality, because it's not about what piece of content goes viral. It's more about successful marketer will lean into those niche communities, those private groups, with basically direct communication. And to do that, they need to be sensitive enough and have this being able to observe and being sensitive enough in terms of those communities' needs, in order to offer them something valuable and something meaningful, and also make sure that the members of that community, of those small private groups, also feel meaningful. So it becomes more an art than anything else, basically. So it's more about giving people a useful content that actually solves problems, or even entertain, but entertain deeply. So that's all of that is what's going on right now, and we see it right now. I mean, it's not what will happen in the future; it's what's going on right now. It's going to be even become even bigger, that phenomena of people like some people are talking about zero post platform, where platform we have zero post. Well, that's actually what you see on Netflix. You have a bunch of shows, a bunch of movies, a bunch of TV shows, a bunch of content, but obviously it's not a social media platform. Netflix, it's just a platform that offers a mass media. It's a mass media kind of platform for content, so to speak. Now that's what's going on right now. Now, what's going to happen in the future? Well, in the future, we have something that you probably know and everybody knows, it's AI. So if today the social media platforms are flooded with high budget, with highly polished content, with curated, my gosh, professional, I mean, edited, top-notch edited content, so to speak. Well, imagine what will happen when AI will be much more powerful than it is right now. Well, AI completely flood, will completely flood the web and all those platforms with kind of generic content. So anything raw, authentically human, like real personality, will stand out and feel premium. Yeah, everything that is human, real personality will be premium, because people could relate to those people. They will not be able to relate. People don't even relate, even today. People don't relate to those multimillionaires with a gold chain on their neck, that they have I know how many Ferraris, boats, or whatever it is, and they produce kind of this highly polished, highly edited content, and like people don't really relate to those people. Like they don't recognize themselves in those people, and that's why it's no longer that thing anymore. So people want authenticity, people want realness, people want to relate with real people that do something interesting, exciting, but also that are kind of look like them, with all the with none of this perfection, none of this hyper polished. uh, they're just not interested in this anymore, and they feel like they. And also, one of the things that you see more and more than when you're when you're on a social in a social network, in a social group, you tend to, and I know you're not supposed to do that, but humans tend to compare one to each other. And when you're in a space on a social media, and you see all of those people that live a perfect life, like, people have enough of this. Like, in a social networks, you kind of naturally compare to each other. If you can relate to the people that you're comparing to, that's one thing. But if everyone lives that perfect life, multi-million-dollar mansion with Ferraris, with highly successful, whatever it is, um, at some point you get disappointed. Maybe some people get depressed, and then they just leave those platforms, because they don't see themselves with all of those people. Those They get alienated, basically. So that's one of the reasons why also people leave. They just get overwhelmed, and they just leave those platforms. That's there's no realness, there's no personality, there's no humanity in it anymore. So brands and creator who show kind of even vulnerability or kind of realness will earn more trust. It's all about trust. Economy is based on trust. Social networks are based on trust. And any salesperson that you'll talk to will say that if you want to sell something, whatever it's product or service, one of the things that you need to establish is trust. So all of those marketers, obviously, they will have to build trust, and that's how it's going to be in the next years. Versus those who have this highly edited, polished content that kind of that nobody's believing anymore. People are not interested in watching that anymore, because it's not what they will be attracted to. And just at the end, I will just say that, the whole idea, obviously, marketers, they took advantage of the social media for good reason. I mean, if you look at, the average of posting on, even on Instagram, it's 9 posts a week. I mean, individuals, yeah, they will post. Some people will post even a lot, but you have to understand that 9 posts per week, those are highly polished, high production, big budget sometimes posts, and obviously individuals will not be able to, even an independent creator will not be able to kind of compete with those high budget, highly professional media production companies. And obviously, that's why people get much more private networks, much more smaller groups. And by the end, the only thing that I could say is that the kind of the next I will say, the next era, or the next stage, or the next era of digital marketing, if we could call it like that, is about being human in a sea of robots, basically, because AI will flood it. What we see right now, it's nothing compared to what AI will do. It will, with all of those AI agents, they will completely flood all of those platforms with highly polished, zero, well, maybe they will look like humans, but there will be no realness. There will be highly polished, highly edited content, and everything that is kind of raw, unedited, real, with real people, that other people could relate to, even on declining platform, like the one that I listed, um, especially YouTube. I don't know about Facebook, but something like, maybe YouTube or Instagram, they'll still be around. Everything that is real, authentic, will stand out. Will stand out. It's just you have to understand the human nature by itself, and that's the content. That's the creative aspect, or the creative, the real creators that will also become also digital marketers of the future, so to speak. So it's not about, it's all about being human in a sea of robots. That's the only thing I wanted to share with you today. So if you find it useful, please leave a like, leave a comment. If you have any ideas, please let me know. And on this one, see you in the next one. Bye bye.